So what if the ultimate biohacking tool for injury recovery isn't, a $5,000 cold plunge or like a hyperbaric chamber, like some cutting-edge app that tracks all your micro movements?
Right.
What if the most effective intervention is actually just a $10 piece of rubber that was patented over a century ago?
Yeah.
Today, we are looking at what happens when a hyper-analytical software engineer treats his failing human body like a piece of buggy code.
I mean, it really just flips our modern assumptions about health and technology completely upside down.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we tend to think that a complex biological failure, right, requires this highly complex, super expensive intervention. But sometimes applying a rigorous engineering framework to a really low-tech tool yields way better results than just passive modern medicine.
And that is really the core of today's deep dive. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've ever dealt with a cascading physical injury,
Mm.
that frustrating nagging pain that just seems to jump from your back to your knee to your neck, you are going to want to hear this.
Oh, absolutely. It's so relatable.
Right. So we are drawing from this fascinating, deeply personal blog post found on qianmeng.org. And the author is a self-described old software plumber named Ang.
I love that description.
Yeah, it's great. Specifically, we're looking at an entry from his archives, and it's titled Notes on Exercises, Part 17, Healing in a Rubber Container. So, okay, let's unpack this, because to grasp the sheer brilliance of the simple solution at the center of this source material, we really first have to understand the mind of the architect who wrote it.
Right, because Ang is not a doctor, and
Right.
he's not a physical therapist.
Not at all.
He is an open source software developer. He spends his life steeped in Floss, that's free, Libre, and open source software. And this is an environment where literally every single bug, every patch, every system update is meticulously documented, right?
Yeah.
And openly shared so that the entire community can learn from it.
And his level of documentation is it is staggering. To give you an idea of how this man processes the world, his blog features thousands of entries going all the way back to 2011. He doesn't just casually blog, he categorizes his entire existence. Like you look at his archives and you see these highly technical notes on Haskell programming, Elixir, Python.
Super dense stuff.
Exactly. But then he applies that exact same systematic rigor to his offline life. Like he has a gardening series with over 800 updates.
800.
800. And over 200 separate posts documenting the highly specific minutia of fish keeping.
See, he essentially views his entire life as this interconnected series of systems.
Yeah.
Whether he is optimizing a Wi-Fi 7 network or, logging the spawning habits of a betta fish, he's constantly gathering data, observing variables, and looking for efficiencies.
Which is what makes his physical breakdown so interesting to me. Because Ang outlines this specific perfect storm of relatable, almost mundane human errors that caused a severe relapse of a knee injury.
Right.
And it was accompanied by really intense muscle spasms. It wasn't like a traumatic car crash. It was a slow-motion cascade.
It's always the slow ones.
Right. So he details a fall on his side while gardening. And instead of resting, he followed that up with prolonged periods of really poor sitting posture at his desk.
Oh, man.
Then he decided to do an indoor run. Without proper warm-ups and without the right shoes, add in a general lack of quality sleep, and his body finally just locked up.
Yeah, mechanically speaking, that is a textbook kinetic chain collapse.
How so?
Well, when you fall and injure your side, your body subconsciously alters your gait to protect the injured tissue. You don't even know you're doing it. You start compensating.
Right.
And that compensation throws your pelvic alignment off, which immediately puts abnormal shear force on the knee joint.
Wow, okay.
Then you sit with poor posture, which shortens your hip flexors and overstretches your lower back. So by the time he attempted an unwarmed-up run in bad shoes, his fascia and muscles were already functioning at a severe mechanical disadvantage.
That makes so much sense.
And then the sleep deprivation was just the final blow, right? It stripped away his body's ability to clear cellular waste and repair those micro tears overnight.
See, if I am programming a piece of software and a system fails like that, I get an error log. I can trace the exact line of code where the logic broke down.
Exactly.
But the human body doesn't throw clean error codes. You don't get a little pop-up window saying, your kinetic chain is offline due to a bad gardening maneuver.
Right. There's no diagnostic dashboard.
So how does a hyper-technical mind handle a system that doesn't provide clean, parsable feedback?
Well, he admits his own hardware limitations. In the post, Ang explicitly states that his memory simply isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, He's very honest about it.
He is. He realized he had forgotten the specific recovery protocols that actually worked during his last injury simply because he hadn't documented them.
Wow.
So he reacts the only way an open source developer knows how. He starts logging the biological data. He recognizes that failing to track his physical health with the same rigor he applies to his code or his fish tanks is a massive vulnerability.
Which brings us to the actual intervention. We have a software architect facing a cascading systems failure in his own body. And instead of going high-tech, he goes brilliantly, almost stubbornly low-tech.
I love this part.
He explicitly bypasses the standard modern medical route. He doesn't go get prescription painkillers, and he doesn't immediately sign up for highly structured, expensive physiotherapy. Here's where it gets really interesting. His ultimate fix is a basic rubber or thermoplastic container, a hot water bottle.
A hot water bottle. It is the ultimate expression of Occam's razor applied to biology.
Right.
We have this heavy cultural bias toward complexity right now. If a biological system fails, we just assume we need a cutting-edge synthetic molecule or some smart device to fix it. We rarely stop to consider that a basic thermodynamic tool might actually be the most robust intervention available.
And the instructions he gives are so specific, too. He says to fill it with hot water, but absolutely not boiling water. Seal it securely with a stopper and wrap it in a towel.
Crucial step.
Yeah, to prevent burns from prolonged skin contact. Now, I get that a hot water bottle feels comforting, but Eng doesn't strike me as a guy who just accepts that something feels nice and leaves it at that.
No, not at all.
True to his engineering mindset, he interrogates the mechanics. He needs to know the underlying architecture of the relief.
Right, the actual why behind it.
Exactly. So he breaks his findings down into 4 distinct physiological pillars. Let's start with the first one, vasodilation. What is actually happening at a cellular level when you apply this rubber container to a spasming muscle?
Okay, so when you apply sustained localized heat to human tissue, the smooth muscle cells lining the walls of your blood vessels actually relax.
Okay.
This causes the capillaries to widen, and that's vasodilation. Think of it as a massive supply chain optimization for a disaster zone.
I like that.
The injury site is full of metabolic waste like lactic acid and damaged cellular debris, which is what causes the inflammation and pain. By widening the vascular highways, the body can rapidly flush out that toxic waste.
Clearing the roadblock.
Exactly, while simultaneously rushing in fresh oxygen, nutrients, and macrophages to repair the micro tears in the muscle.
So it's literally expanding the bandwidth of the biological supply chain.
Yeah.
That makes sense for long-term tissue repair. But his second point tackles the immediate sensation of pain, which he calls a neurological override.
Right.
And I can't help but look at this through, like, a cybersecurity lens. It operates exactly like a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service on the central nervous system.
Oh, walk me through that analogy. That's good.
So, in a DDoS attack, a hacker takes down a server, not by breaking the cryptography, but by flooding the server with so much junk traffic that the legitimate data simply can't get through the bandwidth.
Right.
The system gets overwhelmed and just drops the packets. So when Eng applies the hot water bottle, he is essentially flooding his brain's servers with so much warmth data that the actual pain data gets bottlenecked at the spinal cord.
What's fascinating here is that your analogy perfectly describes the gate control theory of pain.
Oh, really?
Yes. In neurology, we have different types of nerve fibers. The fibers that transmit the sensation of touch and temperature, the A-beta fibers, are thick, heavily myelinated, and incredibly fast.
Okay.
But the fibers that transmit aching, throbbing pain, the C fibers, are thin and relatively slow.
Oh, wow.
So when you apply heat, those fast temperature signals literally outrun the slow pain signals to the dorsal horn of the spinal cord.
It's a race.
Exactly. The temperature signals reach the gate first and close it, preventing the pain signals from ever reaching the brain's processing centers.
So he is actively intercepting the data packet before it can be processed. He is hacking his own nervous system to buy his body the time it needs to heal.
Precisely.
But, numbing the pain doesn't fix the physical stiffness he mentioned. His entire cascade started with bad posture and locked up joints. Which brings us to his third pillar, flexibility and elasticity.
Right, because pain relief is really just sensory manipulation. You still have to deal with the physical architecture of the tissue.
Yeah.
Muscles and fascia, the connective tissue wrapping the muscles, are viscoelastic. When they are injured, cold, or subjected to chronic poor posture, they become incredibly rigid and dense.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right? It's like trying to stretch a cold rubber band. It's prone to snapping. Sustained heat changes the fluid dynamics within that tissue. It literally alters the viscosity of the fascial fluid, making the physical structures pliable and extensible again.
Which naturally leads to his fourth and final pillar, releasing what we commonly call knots.
Yes, the worst part?
Aang notes that the heat forces protective muscle spasms to finally let go. I always wondered about this. Why does a muscle knot up and refuse to relax in the first place? It feels like a massive design flaw.
It seems like it, but it's actually a highly evolved defense mechanism, and it's driven by sensory receptors called muscle spindles. When you push a muscle too far, like Aang doing an intense indoor run without a warm-up, these spindles detect dangerous levels of stretch or microtearing. To prevent the muscle from literally ripping itself apart, the nervous system triggers a localized, involuntary contraction.
Oh, so it locks the area down in a biological splint.
Exactly. The problem is the nervous system often forgets to turn the alarm off even after the immediate danger has passed. So the knot is essentially a false positive stuck in a feedback loop.
And the heat from the rubber container acts as the system override.
Exactly. The sustained, comforting warmth signals to the parasympathetic nervous system that the environment is safe. It lowers the neurological threat level, which finally coaxes those muscle spindles to stop firing and release the contraction.
Vasodilation, optimizing the supply chain, a DDoS attack on the pain receptors, viscoelastic fluid dynamics, and overriding the muscle spindle defense mechanism.
It's a lot.
Those are four incredibly complex, highly synchronized biological processes, all triggered by a simple container of hot water.
It is an unbelievably elegant solution. It proves that you don't need to understand the molecular chemistry of a pharmaceutical to achieve profound medical relief.
Right.
You just need to understand the mechanical levers of your own biology.
But, as any good software developer knows, applying a patch and getting the system running again doesn't mean the underlying code is permanently stable.
No, the work isn't done.
Right. Aang doesn't just heal his knee and move on. He implements a new, forward-looking protocol to ensure this cascade doesn't happen again.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where Aang shifts from treating an acute symptom to managing a complex, dynamic system. He announces that, moving forward, he is going to maintain a strict pain journal.
And the reason he needs this journal is honestly the most frustrating part of any recovery process. He notes that as he treats the injury, the pain isn't just fading away, it's migrating.
Yes.
It is actively moving to different areas of his body with each passing week. Why does pain do that? Like, is the injury actually traveling around his body?
The initial injury isn't traveling, but the neurological awareness of the kinetic chain is shifting.
What do you mean?
Remember that cascade we talked about? The bad posture, the altered gait, the overcompensation.
Right.
When Aang finally releases the primary knot in his knee, the brain suddenly has the bandwidth to perceive the secondary injuries, like the tight hip flexor or the strained lower back that were previously being drowned out by the loudest pain signal.
Oh, so the loud alarm was hiding the quieter alarms.
Exactly. Furthermore, pain is highly neuroplastic. Sometimes the nervous system becomes so sensitized that it starts misinterpreting normal mechanical pressure in adjacent areas as active tissue damage.
So a pain journal isn't just a diary. It is literally the biological equivalent of a developer's error log. He is mapping the migration of the secondary bugs as he patches the primary ones.
That is the crucial takeaway here. By logging the migrating pain, Aang is engaging in something called somatic tracking.
Somatic track.
Yes. When you are injured and in pain, your brain defaults to the amygdala, the fear, panic, and emotional processing center. You feel like a passive, helpless victim of your own failing body.
Which is an awful feeling.
It really is. But the moment you start documenting the pain, noting its location, its intensity, what makes it better or worse, you force your brain to shift electrical activity from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, which governs logic, analysis, and objective observation.
You stop being the victim of the bug and you become the debugger. You regain agency over the system.
Precisely. You are no longer suffering a mysterious affliction. You are gathering data, applying a variable like heat therapy, and objectively logging the outcome. It is a radical act of self-advocacy.
So what does this all mean for you navigating your own life? We started this deep dive looking at a very common, very frustrating biological problem, the nagging, cascading physical injury.
Yeah.
And we explored it through the lens of a hyper-analytical systems thinker who meticulously catalogs everything from open source software to the water quality of his fish tanks. Aang's experience gives us a highly adaptable framework.
Absolutely.
When a complex system in your life fails, Strip away the modern bias toward expensive, high-tech solutions. Look for the robust, low-tech intervention. Take the time to genuinely understand the underlying mechanics of why that simple fix works. And most importantly, meticulously log your data so you aren't doomed to repeat the cycle.
Eng's framework is brilliant, but there is one detail from his pain journal that I think warrants a much deeper reflection.
What's that?
He casually mentioned that his physical pain was migrating, moving to different areas with each passing week, practically hiding from his attempts to pin it down and treat it.
Yeah, the evasive nature of the symptom.
Yes. If physical pain is that dynamic, mobile, and evasive, if your biology will actively shift the location of a problem just to avoid dealing with the root cause, how many of our other chronic, everyday problems are doing the exact same thing?
Oh, wow.
Think about the recurring friction in your romantic relationships, the constant bottlenecks in your professional work, or your most stubborn, destructive daily habits.
Right.
How many of those seemingly isolated issues are actually just the exact same underlying, unaddressed injury constantly migrating to a new location in your life just to avoid detection?
That is a phenomenal question to leave you with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into systems thinking, biological debugging, and the incredible power of a simple rubber container. We will catch you next time.
Keep observing your variables and keep interrogating the mechanics of your world.